Let's begin Basic Skills Review number 6, Fractions, Decimals, and Percents. Those of you in pre-algebra have already done some of this in class in Chapter 1. Those of you in Algebra 1 should have done it last year, but it's always good to review. Soon we will be using calculators for changing fractions to decimals, fractions to percents, percents to fractions, percents to decimals, decimals to fractions, and decimals to percents. We need to learn to use the calculator for testing purposes and for sake of time, because sometimes it takes a while to do this by hand. But first is important that you know how to do them without calculators. So that's what we're going to work on today. To change a fraction to a decimal, we know that you divide the numerator by the denominator. For repeating decimals, you may use the shortcut we learned in class. So let's look at the example, 5/8, or 5 divided by 8 if we read it properly. Remember that the numerator goes inside the box and the denominator goes outside the box. 8 goes into 5 0 times. 0 times 8 is 0. 5 minus 0 is 5. We need to add a decimal point, pull down a 0. 8 goes into 50 6 times. 6 times 8 is 48. 50 minus 48, let's just move it over here, is 2. We're going to pull down another 0, we get 20. 8 goes into 20 2 times. 16, 8 times 2 is 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. Pull down a 0, 8 goes into 45 times. Didn't leave a lot of room for us to do this, but the decimal form of 5/8 is 0.625. Now remember when we had repeating decimals such as 7/9, we could use our shortcut and we just say 0.7 repeating. So for that, if you need to show the division, that's fine, but you may also use the shortcut. Now, to change a fraction to a percent, there are two different ways. First of all, if the denominator can easily be changed to 100, multiply the denominator by the factor to make 100 and multiply the numerator by the same factor. Add a percent sign to your new numerator. So your example is 1/4. Well, 1/4 can be changed to 100 because I can multiply 4 times 25. 4 times 25 equals 100. Once I multiply by 25, I need to multiply my numerator by 25 as well. So 25 over 100, so 25%. So 1/4 would be 25%. The second way is to divide the numerator by the denominator, change the resulting decimal to a percent by moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. To save time, let's use the one we already did above. 5/8 we know equals 0.625 as a decimal. If I want to change it to a percent, I move my decimal point 2 places to the right, and now I'm 62.5%. So you can do it either way on this one. We could have done the division and then change the decimal to a percent, or we can multiply to get a denominator of 100. When you have a denominator such as 8, 8 will not multiply by any number to make 100, so you actually have to do the division and then move the decimal point. Let's change percents to fractions. First of all, we're going to remove the percent sign and put the number over 100 and then simplify. So if we have 25%, we remove the percent, put it over 100 because remember that percent means per 100. 25 over 100 can be simplified by dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 25, and we get 1/4. So the fraction form of 25% is 1/4. If we want to change a percent to a decimal, it's very simple. We remove the decimal sign or the percent sign. Now we have 25. We know that there's a decimal point here even though we can't see it, and we're going to move it 2 places to the left. So our resulting decimal for 25% is 0.25 or 25 hundredths. Let's change a decimal to a fraction. First of all, we remove the decimal point and we place the number over 10, 100, or 1,000 depending on its place value. So here, if we read this decimal correctly, it's 25/100ths. So we write 25 over 100, simplify it like we did above by dividing by 25, and our fraction would be 1/4. Here we have 7/10. So we're going to write 7 over 10. It's already simplified, so the fraction form of 7/10 is 7 over 10. 0.2 repeating. This is one where we can use a shortcut. And remember, when it's repeating one place past the decimal point, we put it over 9. What happens if it's repeating 2 places past the decimal point? So if we had 0.13 repeating, recall from chapter 1 that we take 13 over 99, simplify it if necessary. Here it's already in simplified form. Last, we're going to change a decimal to a percent. To change a decimal to a percent, we move the decimal point 2 places to the right and then add a percent sign. So 0.25, we move it 1, 2, and it becomes 25%. 0.7, we move it 1, placeholder, 2, and it becomes 70%. 0.125, we're going to move our decimal point 1, 2, and it becomes 12.5%. 2.5, we're going to move it 1, placeholder 2, and it becomes 250%. So some of them are easier than others, but if you follow your rules and use this as well as the guided practice we're going to do together, this should be much easier for you. Once we learn to do it without the calculator, we'll start using the calculator to save some time. So let's take a look at the guided practice. First, we're going to change fractions to percents. So we have 1/4. The first thing we need to do is change 1/4 to a decimal, and then we can change it to a percent. Now, there are certain ones that you should just memorize, and I'll talk to you about those in a minute. Once you've learned them by memory, you will not have to show any work for them. So 1/4, we're going to put 1 inside, 4 outside. 4 goes into 1, 0 times 4 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. Put your decimal point, pull down a 0. 4 goes into 10 twice. 2 times 4 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. Pull down a 0. 4 goes into 25 times. 5 times 4 is 20. And we're finished with our division. So our decimal is 0.25, and then to change that to a percent, we move it 1, 2 places, and we get 25%. Now that's one way. I showed you the other way on the notes on the previous page, how we can change 1/4 to a denominator of 100 and then make it 25%. Either way is fine. 3/5. This is one that easily changes to 100, so rather than doing the division, let's change it to 100. 5 times 20 equals 100. So we're going to multiply our numerator also by 20. 3 times 20 is 60. We take that numerator and add a percent sign. So 3 over 5, or 3/5, is 60%. 3/10, also easy to change to 100. 10 times 10 is 100. 3 times 10 is 30. So we take that 30, add a percent sign, and 3/10 is the same as 30%. Okay, let's change from fraction to decimal. All right, so changing from fraction to decimal, we already did that. Up above, we changed it to 0.25. If you need to see how to do the work, it's using division. If you memorize it, it's 0.25. Number 5, we had 60%. So we take our 60, remove the percent sign, move the decimal point 2 places to the left, and you get 0.6. Or 0.60 is fine, but that 0 at the end is not necessary. 3/10. Well, if I read that correctly, I should know that it's 0.3, But if I need to take the 30% and change it, move my decimal point over 2 places, I get 0.3. Either way is fine. If you memorize it, that's the best. Then you don't have any work to show whatsoever. Number 7, we're going to change our percent to a fraction. Remember that we removed the percent sign, put 25 over 100, and we simplify. When we simplify, it simplifies to 1/4. Number 8, we're going to change 60% to a fraction. 60 over 100. Simplify by dividing by 20. And you should get 3 over 5. 30%, we're going to put 30 over 100. Simplify by dividing by 10. And you should get 3/10. Next, we're going to change a percent to a decimal. Changing percents to decimals are very simple. Let's remove the percent sign. Here's our decimal. Let's move it over 1, 2 places to the left, and we get 0.25. 11, remove your percent, move your decimal 1, 2 places, 0.6. 0.60 is fine, but you don't need that 0 at the end. 30%, we take the 30, move our decimal point 1, 2 places, 0.3. So all of these things are very similar. You just have to remember your rules. Those of you in pre-algebra, you have a foldable in your math journal that goes through how to do each of these things. So not only do you have this video and these guided notes, but you also have a foldable. Change a decimal to a fraction. Well, we're going to take 25 hundredths and write 25 over 100 and simplify it to 1/4. Number 14, 6/10. We're going to take 6 and put it over 10, and we're going to simplify it to 3/5. Number 15, 3/10. We're going to write 3 over 10, and it's already in simplest form, so 3/10. Last, we're going to change a decimal to a percent. Remember that we take our decimal point, move it 2 places to the right, add a percent sign. Number 17, decimal point, move it 2 places to the right, means you'll need a placeholder, add a percent sign. 3/10. Move your decimal point 2 places to the right. You'll need a placeholder. Add a percent sign, 30%. If you need to go back and review this video one more time before beginning the homework, that's fine. I would suggest that you take some time to memorize the next 2 pages of decimals, fractions, and percents to know. All of these are going to be very helpful to you if you know them. You will not have to show your work. So if you memorize them, it saves you a lot of time and a lot of mistakes. So I would highly recommend memorizing those fraction, decimals, and percents. Once you are finished, go ahead and move to homework number 6. You're going to use your notes and not guess. No calculator. You're going to be graded, and there will be a quiz over this material. What I want you to do is take 7/8, change it to a decimal, change it to a percent. You may need to use a back of this page for your work or an extra sheet of paper. Number 2, you have a decimal, 0.25 or 25 hundredths. Change it to a fraction, change it to a percent. Number 3, you have a percent, 10%. Change it to a decimal, change it to a fraction, and so on with 4 through 9. So take your time, get your homework done correctly, and then once you have done it to my satisfaction, you may move to homework number 7.